I think this parish was founded in July of '73, and I was appointed as associate pastor in February of 1974. So I was the first associate. Father Nick Mortran was the pastor. He was the founding pastor. And this complex did not exist, of course. There was a home in Magellan Place on Magellan Drive that served as the first rectory. But at the time that I was appointed, there were two people living there already. Father Nick Mortran was a pastor, and now Father Jeff Bahi was a seminarian, and he was assigned there. So there was no room for me at the rectory on Magellan Place. And something unique happened then. The parish actually paid for an apartment on Boulevard de Provence, which was new at the time and fairly upscale. And so I had a 2-bedroom apartment there. During the time that I lived, that was before this property where we are now was bought, but we were looking for property somewhere, not far from South Sherwood Forest Boulevard, because that was more toward the center of the parish. The parish boundaries were very small. It was founded from St. Thomas More and St. George, pieces of each of those parishes, but very small, because at the time, that's what we were doing, forming small parishes aimed at maybe 1,500 people. During that time, another parish nearby was founded, and that was St. Jean Vianney. And Father Gene Ingalls, who was the founding pastor of that parish, and I were very good friends. So before he had a rectory to live in, he came to live with me in the 2-bedroom apartment. And that was for several months, I'm sure. I don't remember exactly how long. But then we bought this property on Brogden Lane, and first of all, there was a house here, and we turned that house into the rectory. The church came about 2 years later. And we lived upstairs and had the offices downstairs. It was a beautiful piece of property, beautiful big home. There was a swimming pool. And I think at the time we probably added a room at the back next to the swimming pool, which served as the conference room. It was beautiful. You could look out on a swimming pool if you wanted to, or you could close the curtains and have some privacy. That swimming pool was here long past the time that I got moved to St. Francisville as pastor. And that was after the church was built here too. We actually moved into this church, as I recall, in either Christmas of 1977 or Christmas of 1978. Before that, we were having Mass, daily Mass at the rectory on Magellan Place and Sunday Mass at Episcopal High School. So we had that for about 2 years of the time I was here, which we were grateful, very grateful to Episcopal for allowing us to use that facility on Sundays. The chapel would not have been anywhere near large enough for the Sunday crowds. So the church opened, I think it was 1977, Christmas. And so I was here at the time when we moved into this particular church. It was fairly unique for the time because it was 3-sided, pews. Plus, it had a very movable, and I think it's still there, very movable sanctuary. It wasn't easily moved because the blocks are very heavy, but we could adapt the sanctuary in different ways depending on the liturgical season. When we founded the parish, it was a very exciting time in the church, and as founders of a new parish, people were exceptionally kind and generous and involved. It was a very involved parish. As far as I know, it still is today. The people from Lake Sherwood Acres, of course, putting together St. George and St. Thomas More was something of a task, but we just had such generous people, people so willing to be part of that exciting time. St. Patrick will always be part of my priesthood because it was, let's see, before that, I was mostly in the chancery. I had been associate at St. Joseph Cathedral and Sacred Heart and places like that in the city, but spent a great deal of time in the chancery too. And then I was also a professor later on at the prep school. We had a high school seminary here. So this was kind of my first real parish experience. We were able to help a lot of people, whether with marriage situations or counseling or whatever. But I remember particularly one lady came up to me at the 25th year celebration, and I would not have been able to tell you at all who she was, and said, "You really helped me, you helped save my faith." So I hope that can continue at St. Patrick. And I trust my fellow priests, now most of whom are a lot younger than me, to be able to carry on that tradition. And maybe for the 75th year celebration, some of them will hear the same thing if they're able to come back for that celebration.